Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Please join me in Gasho. Namo Amidabits, Namo Amidabits, Namo Amidabits, Namandaps, 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 Namandaps. Good morning, and thank you for joining me on this Sunday. I hope that you're remaining safe, but at the same time, I hope that you're able to get out there and enjoy some of this beautiful weather we're having because this is some of the best weather we've had in Arizona in like 6 months, and it's great. So I hope that you're able to enjoy that while also, social distancing as you need to. It's been incredibly busy around here lately. I've been preparing to go back to in-person classes, and as of course many of you guys know, my wife and I are expecting a child, so we've put together like a nursery and begun to like put things together in our house. One of the harder parts has been trying to pick out a name, though. That's been actually like really difficult, and a lot of this is because I'm a teacher, and when you're a teacher, you have heard pretty much every name imaginable, both the good ones and the bad ones, and you can picture a student that goes with each one of those names. And suffice to say that some names are elevated and others taken down a notch as a result of your experiences with people, with students in the past. And so it's really kind of awkward to like think about names because they're all kind of used up. And you want to make a good decision about a name because the child has to carry that name around for the rest of their life. It's like part of them. It's like an essential part of who they are. Like they're going to hear that every single day and identify by that thing. So, there's a lot of pressure that goes into selecting a really good name. For this reason, I've been talking to a lot of people about their own names, like what do names mean, but also why were they named what they were. I actually talked about this with the Dharma students a couple of weeks ago. I asked them what their names meant and where they came from. And there's always a lot of really great stories out there. So, for example, like Sensei Sugiyama said that his name, when you write out Ungyo and Sugiyama, actually forms like a picture, which I think is really cool. It's like conceptually very interesting. Some of us have names that are, of course, based off of our former family members, right? Like my middle names, James and Masaji, are based off my grandparents. My grandpa on my dad's side, Grandpa Jim, and then my grandfather on my mom's side, Grandpa Mas. So you kind of carry legacies with you and those sorts of things. And that being said, sometimes names don't mean much at all, and they just sound good. Like basically, people pick them up off of their favorite TV shows. A lot of 2019 Khaleesi's running around, or randomly based off of just circumstances, like my sister. She was named Tracy because, not because my mother and father had actually planned that out. My mom was actually unconscious at the time, and they asked my father what they wanted to name his daughter, and he said he met a nurse that day and said like that he really thought the name was cool. And so for that reason alone, his daughter was named Tracy. And my mom had no say in that. And I promise not to do that to my wife when the circumstances are presented. But in the Buddhist tradition, like there are lots of importance, there's a lot of importance placed on names. Like, for example, Shinran's name, or in terms of what he selected for himself, he called himself Gutoku Shinran, which meant bald headed foolish one. And of course, this was because he understood that he was a foolish person. Like all individuals, he had an ego that blinded him, and he wasn't going to be able to achieve enlightenment under his own power. So he called himself bald headed foolish one, Gutoku Shinran. Or, if you go further back into like traditional Buddhism, like the name Maya, Queen Maya, the mother of Siddhartha, Maya translates to good mother, which of course she had to be in order to give birth to the historical Buddha and raise him appropriately so that he could be the person he was. Even the name Siddhartha translates to one who accomplishes a goal, which of course foretells this idea of what he was going to be to the world and everything that he was going to accomplish in his life. I think about names in this regard all the time, like what they mean, the stories that go into them. But I think that one of the most important lessons that I've learned about names as I've really thought about them a lot over the last several months is that it's not really what they mean originally that's the most important thing, or why we receive them, but it's more the fact that we did receive them. It's more the fact that they were given to us. And that's kind of what I want to focus on. I think that it's important for us to remember that names are given to us as gifts at one point in time in our lives. And honestly, in a lot of ways, they came are the beginning of our story, but that the type of gift that changes over a lifetime as we spend our lives sort of trying to understand them and define them. So an example I'll use is like my Buddhist name. Many of us have Buddhist names, right? We receive these later in life, but we all receive them from a person, and usually it's from like a sensei that we're with or around, or someone that is a spiritual leader of some sorts. And in my particular case, my Buddhist name is Seijo, which of course means one who accomplishes their vows. So it's like vow achiever. And I remember receiving this gift back in the day, my name. It was actually from Reverend Fudamoto from back in, when I was at a time when I was traveling to Japan with the rest of the junior YBA and many different Sangha members. And I remember we went to receive these names, and I remember that we were sitting in this side area and our legs were all falling asleep at the time because we were sitting in Seiza style, and we all started to like fall over and teeter. And all the Japanese people were like whispering about it, and they were saying that we all sit really ugly because we're Americans and we need chairs, basically. But I remember when I actually received my name from Reverend Fudamoto had written it out. I remember he explained to me that it was Seijo and that it meant vow achiever. And I remember thinking, like as a young version of myself, like as a teenager, like that is a cool name. A, I think it sounds cool, but B, the concept of vow achiever means like I'm going to be a bodhisattva. I'm going to be a Buddha one day. Like I can do that. And that's what people think of me. And so I kind of thought that this name was very, was A, fitting, and B, sounded great, and C, was like a promise for the future. Like, you're going to do it. No problems at all, kid, said 17-year-old myself. And I took it as a sort of point of pride that I received that name. I really liked it. And, it's kind of interesting because I look back at that, 17-year-old, 18-year-old me, and I think like, man, that was an arrogant way to look at a really cool gift that somebody gave you. Not like, thank you so much for thinking of me and giving me this name, but like, yeah, this shows how great I am, or something like that when I was young. That's how young people think, right? Or speak. It's funny because as I've grown older, the name doesn't even mean that to me anymore. I mean, it still translates to a person, to that, right? One who achieves their vows, right? But as my understanding of the Dharma has sort of grown over the years, it's just not the same as it was when I was a teenager. Now, as I've become older, like more aware of the complexities of Buddhist teaching, as I live my life, and I've gone through both successes and failures as an individual, as every single human being does, you come to recognize that life is complicated and not just about like going out and carpe diem, seizing the day. You also recognize that from a Buddhist perspective, the concept of like becoming enlightened by your own efforts is it's fraudulent, it's crazy, it's silly, like in a lot of ways. It's hard to accomplish by virtue of just meditating constantly and being the best person you can. Obviously, the idea of being a vow achiever, becoming a bodhisattva just because you're going to work hard it's not something that we really practice here in this sect of Jodo Shinshu. And as you get older, you recognize this about yourself, your own limitations, but also you understand these teachings more and they mean more to you in this kind of way. And you recognize it's not really all about you. It's about bigger picture, I guess. As I reflect on my name now, Seijo, one who achieves their goals, I realize that this doesn't disappoint me to think about the past and how I was, but really it's just, I recognize that it's growth, right? And I recognize that the meaning of my name, Vow Achiever, is more of a promise that's been made in the past. But it's not really a promise that I've made. It has less to do with me and more to do with the Buddha. I realize now as I get older that, I myself cannot become an enlightened being, a bodhisattva, through my own efforts, but I can through the Buddha's compassion. And that's a different story, right? My name is Seijo, and it is a promise, but it is not my promise. It's the Buddha's promise, which was that he will achieve enlightenment only after saving all those who say his name, right? It's not my effort, but the Buddha's effort that achieves this. And the 18-year-old version of me didn't understand this because it wasn't about everyone else. It was about me as an 18-year-old. But the 36-year-old version of me that's having a child soon thinks a little bit differently about these sorts of things. And it's interesting how your perspective changes. It's a little bit more of a humility thing at this point in time and a bigger picture thing. And what's odd to me is that this is only my understanding of it right now as 36-year-old me. And the future version of me, the older version of me, if I am fortunate enough to grow old and live a good life, probably looks at my name very differently. And I don't know what that is yet. But I look forward to understanding that throughout the years. If you think of your own name, I'm sure you know its meaning, and I'm sure you know where it comes from, but also I'm sure that you know the story that it carries with it, the people who gave it to you, and all the best wishes that came with it when you were born, when you received it. And I'm sure that as you have lived your life, you've gone by a lot of different nicknames, pet names, shortened and extended the syllables as you've worked different jobs and loved different people, lived different lives. Your name has always been a part of you. It's been always there, even if it changes slightly. And as I reflect on my own name now, I realize that the more than anything, it isn't a prognostication of what's going to be or a definition of who I am, but a reminder of where you come from and kind of a guide for where you're going along the way. Like many gifts are when they come from the people that care about you and the ones that are part of you. And the guide is kind of like a reminder of what's important. The Buddha teaches us that the nature of life is all about change, constant impermanence. And while our names themselves don't really shift from moment to moment, the meaning we derive from them, the lessons we take from them, does. And the meaning of the names we carry, Michael, Seijio, their meanings changes as our stories grow and our lives interconnect more and more with the people around us every single day. And this is why I think about names as gifts, right? Because whether they're given to us in our infancy or in our spirit, whether it's physical or spiritual infancy, they're the gift that stays with us throughout our lives, but we keep learning from them and they become part of who we are. And, the meaning of what they mean and how they impact others and how people think of that name, well, that's kind of up to us to determine along the way. The name you receive is probably filled with a story and filled with history and hopes and dreams, but what that name means and how you're going to live up to that, that's up to you. And what it means to other people, that is also going to be up to you. And it's not so different from the way that we live by the teachings of the Buddha. The Buddha's name, of course, is sacred in our understanding. It is the Buddha. The primal vow, our gifts, these are given to us as well, just like our name. They're given to us before any of us are even born. The primal vow, the promises of the Buddha, they precede us in every imaginable way. Before we breathed our own first breath, opened our eyes for the first time, that was already there for us. Before the second we came into existence, the Buddha's gift assured us birth in the Pure Land, as long as you say those words, right? Or if you're born with Buddha nature, which we all are. But how we live our lives, how we embody those teachings, how we live by the teachings of the Buddha, how we interpret them and see them every day of our lives, well, again, just like our own names, it's up to us to define along the way. That's choosing one of the 84,000 Dharma gates, putting one foot in front of the other every day, and trying your best as long as you're on this earth. I don't know what I will name our child when it comes. Whatever I think I will name them now is probably going to change moment to moment. But, I trust and I recognize that doesn't really matter because what I put out there now isn't going to be, and what I think it means now isn't going to be what it means in the future. It's up to the child themselves to live their life and do their own thing and find their own path in that regard. It's not my name, it's her name. And the meaning that anybody extracts from their own experiences and their own joys and their own stories, well, that's going to define that more than anything that begins at the very beginning. So, but anyway, names are gifts, and I'm grateful for mine, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to give one. So, without further ado, thank you for listening. Please join me in Gasho. Namo Amidavits, Namo Amidavits, Namo Amidavits, Namandaps, Namanda.